Everyone in that hospital room thought they were watching a dying woman breathe her last, but they were wrong. Lying pale beneath the white sheets, Amelia heard every whispered betrayal. Her husband Daniel stood beside her bed with trembling hands, not from grief, but impatience, as he signed the divorce papers before her final breath, already dreaming of marrying his rich, powerful boss. At the foot of the bed, his mother quietly discussed selling Amelia's clothes, jewelry, and memories, piece by piece, as if she were nothing more than an inconvenience finally disappearing. They thought Amelia was helpless, they thought she was broke, they thought her silence meant defeat. But what they didn't know was that Amelia had spent years hiding a secret so massive it could crush every lie they had built their lives on. Behind her simple dresses, quiet smile, and patient suffering was a fortune worth $6.9 billion and a mind sharp enough to turn betrayal into a masterpiece. When she opened her eyes, she didn't scream, she didn't beg, she didn't expose them immediately. She smiled. Because every insult, every stolen possession, every fake tear, and every greedy signature had already been recorded. Daniel believed he was walking into a golden future, but he had just signed away the only woman who could have saved him. His mother believed she was stealing from a dying nobody, but she was touching the property of one of the richest women alive. And Amelia's revenge. It didn't come with rage. It came with elegance, lawyers, headlines, locked bank accounts, broken reputations, and a truth so devastating that Daniel and his mother would spend the rest of their lives wishing they had never underestimated the woman they left beside that hospital bed. The room went quiet after Daniel signed. Not peacefully quiet, not the soft quiet that follows prayer or grief. It was the sharp, strange silence of people who had finished doing something ugly and were waiting for the world to approve of it. The pen clicked once in Daniel's hand. Amelia knew that sound. She had heard it on the night he signed their marriage certificate, laughing like a man who had won the sky. She had heard it years later at their kitchen table, when bills came and his smile began to thin. She had heard it in hotel lobbies, office parking lots, and behind doors he thought were closed. That click had followed her marriage from love into rot. Daniel placed the pen on the bedside table beside a plastic cup of untouched water. His hand brushed the tiny vase of white lilies someone had sent that morning. One petal fell onto Amelia's blanket. His mother, Evelyn, made a small sound of disgust. She never even liked lilies, Evelyn whispered, always acted too simple for expensive flowers. Daniel glanced at Amelia's still face. Keep your voice down. For what? Evelyn asked. She can't hear us. Amelia could. Every word entered her like a carefully sharpened needle, but she had trained herself not to flinch. Her breathing remained shallow, her eyelids remained closed. Beneath the hospital blanket, her fingers stayed loose. Years ago, her father had taught her that silence was not weakness. People reveal themselves in the space you leave empty, he had told her once, when she was 9 years old and hiding under his mahogany desk during a board meeting she was never supposed to witness. If you talk too soon, they perform. If you wait, they confess. At the time, she had not understood. She had only watched polished shoes gather around the table, heard grown men laugh with one voice and lie with another, and smelled her father's black coffee cooling above her head. Now, decades later, lying in a hospital bed with the man she once loved, arranging his escape beside her, Amelia understood perfectly. Daniel folded the divorce papers and slid them into a leather folder. It was not even his leather folder. It belonged to Cassandra Voss, his boss, a woman whose name he had begun saying too carefully 6 months before he stopped coming home on time. Cassandra had sent the folder with her driver. Evelyn leaned over the bed, close enough that Amelia could smell the sharp rose perfume she always wore too heavily. You know, Daniel, we should take the pearl earrings before her sister arrives. I never trusted that girl. Clara won't come, Daniel muttered. Amelia cut her off years ago. No, Amelia thought. Clara was in London, standing inside a private conference room with 3 attorneys, 2 auditors, and 1 locked black suitcase. Clara had always been exactly where Amelia needed her to be. Evelyn clicked her tongue. Still, belongings disappear in hospitals. It happens. We should protect what's ours. Ours. The word almost made Amelia laugh. Those pearl earrings Evelyn wanted had belonged to Amelia's grandmother, not because of family sentiment, but because Amelia's grandmother had bought them after closing her first international steel contract in 1978. Evelyn saw pearls. Amelia saw a woman in a navy suit walking through a room of men who expected her to fail. Daniel's phone buzzed. He answered too quickly. "Yes," he said, voice softening. "It's done." Amelia did not need to see his face to know Cassandra was on the other end. Daniel's voice had always betrayed him. With Amelia, lately, it had become impatient and flat. With Cassandra, it turned warm, careful, eager. A pause. "No, she didn't wake up," he said. "The doctor said it could be any time." Another pause. "I know, I'll come straight to the office." Evelyn's eyes, Amelia imagined, were bright with calculation. They had been that way the first time Amelia met her. Back then, Amelia had worn a cotton dress from a thrift store and carried a canvas bag with a broken zipper. Daniel had brought her home for Sunday dinner, nervous and smiling, proud of her in a way that used to make Amelia's heart ache. Evelyn had opened the door, looked Amelia from her plain shoes to her simple necklace, and decided everything she needed to know. "So," Evelyn had said, letting Amelia step inside, as if allowing a stray cat into a clean house, "Daniel says you work in administration." "I do," Amelia had replied. It was not a lie. At that time, she had been working under an assumed name in the administrative department of one of the smaller companies she owned, learning how people behaved when they thought the owner was far away. Evelyn had smiled without warmth. Daniel has always had a soft heart. Daniel had laughed then, embarrassed. "Mom." Amelia remembered the dining room, the too bright chandelier, the roast chicken Evelyn had praised herself for 3 times, and the way Daniel's hand had found hers under the table. He had squeezed it once, secretly, as if saying, "Don't mind her, I choose you." That squeeze had mattered so much then. Now in the hospital room, Daniel said into the phone, "Cassandra, I said it's done. By tomorrow, there won't be anything tying me to her." Amelia's wedding ring felt cold beneath the tape wrapped around her finger to hold the pulse monitor in place. Evelyn moved toward the small closet. "I'm taking her coat." Daniel covered the phone. "Not now. It's cashmere." "Mom." "She won't need it." The closet door opened anyway. Amelia heard hangers scrape against metal. It was such a small sound, ordinary, domestic, almost harmless, yet it carried the weight of every insult Evelyn had ever disguised as advice. "You should wear more makeup, dear. Men are visual. Daniel works so hard. You should be grateful he stays with a woman who earns so little. A wife who cannot give a man children should at least give him peace." That last one had been spoken over tea, 2 weeks after Amelia returned from a doctor's appointment she had attended alone. Daniel had been stuck at work. Amelia had sat in Evelyn's living room while sunlight cut across the carpet and stared at a porcelain angel on the mantel until its painted smile blurred. What Evelyn never knew was that Amelia could have filled that room with diamonds and still felt poor in that moment. She could buy companies, estates, islands, politicians' attention, silence. But she could not buy the one thing she had begged fate to give her quietly. A child. Daniel had held her that night and promised it did not matter. "It's you and me," he had whispered into her hair. "That's enough." For a while, she believed him. The first year of their marriage had been almost beautiful. They lived in a modest apartment with a leaky window above a bakery. Daniel burned toast every Saturday. Amelia grew basil on the fire escape. He brought her cheap daisies from the corner shop because he said expensive flowers looked arrogant. She made him soup when he worked late. He kissed her forehead before leaving every morning. He thought she was poor. She thought he was kind. Neither of them was entirely right. Amelia had hidden her wealth because wealth had ruined nearly everyone she had grown up around. Her father, Theodore Vale, had built the Vale fortune with clean hands and suspicious eyes. He trusted contracts more than compliments and taught Amelia to read balance sheets before fairy tales. When she turned 18, he gave her no sports car, no yacht, no glittering party. He gave her a folder. Inside were articles of incorporation, trust documents, shareholder charts, and a handwritten note. Power is safest when it does not need applause. Her mother, soft-spoken and brilliant, had died when Amelia was 12, leaving behind a scent of vanilla soap, a collection of old piano records, and one sentence Amelia carried like scripture: "Marry someone who would still bring you water if he thought you had nothing." So Amelia did exactly that, or tried to. She met Daniel during a rainstorm at a bus stop outside a public hospital where she had gone to visit a scholarship recipient recovering from surgery. He had offered her half his umbrella after hers turned inside out in the wind. "You look like you're about to fight the weather personally," he said. "I might win," Amelia replied. He laughed as if she had done something wonderful. For the next month, he appeared at the same bus stop every Thursday with coffee. She later learned he did not even take that route. He had changed buses just to see her again. That was the Daniel she married. Or maybe that was only the Daniel he had been when wanting love felt more important than wanting status. In the hospital room, the man who had once shared an umbrella with her said goodbye to Cassandra in a voice soaked with hunger. "I'll see you soon," he murmured. "No, don't worry, she won't be a problem." Amelia counted 3 seconds after he hung up. 3 seconds, another lesson from her father. Never answer immediately. Let people believe they have space. Daniel exhaled. "We should go." Evelyn emerged from the closet with Amelia's coat folded over her arm and Amelia's small travel bag in hand. "I'll just take these home." "Leave the bag. It has her scarf." "Leave it, Mom." Evelyn huffed. "You're sentimental at the worst times." No, Daniel was afraid. That was new. Amelia held onto the thought. Fear had been flickering around him for days, hidden under arrogance. He had been anxious when the doctors spoke, anxious when he stepped into the room, anxious when he signed. Not because Amelia was dying. Because something did not fit. Daniel had always been greedy, but he was not stupid. A part of him had noticed the private room was too elegant for a woman with no savings. He had noticed the specialist who came in at midnight wearing a watch worth more than Daniel's car. He had noticed the nurses spoke to Amelia with unusual care, not pity. He had noticed, but Cassandra had given him a better story. Rich donors, charity placement, administrative mistake. Greed loves explanations that flatter it. The door opened. Daniel and Evelyn stepped into the hall, their voices fading. Amelia waited until their footsteps disappeared. Then she opened her eyes fully. The ceiling was white. The lilies trembled slightly in the air conditioning. The divorce papers were gone, but that did not matter. Amelia had 3 scanned copies, 2 witness statements, and a recording. A small red light blinked from the heart monitor casing. Not part of the hospital equipment. Amelia turned her head toward the corner. The woman sitting quietly in the visitor's chair lowered the magazine covering her face. Clara Vale had their mother's eyes and their father's talent for appearing harmless while preparing to destroy someone. "Well," Clara said, "that was disgusting." Amelia's throat was dry, but her voice came out steady. "Did we get everything?" Clara lifted a tablet, every word, including Evelyn's little shopping trip. "Good. You look pale." "I'm supposed to." "You also look like you're enjoying this." Amelia stared at the door where Daniel had vanished. "Not yet." Clara stood and walked to the bed. She was younger by 5 years, sharper in movement, softer in heart, though she hated when anyone said so. While Amelia had been trained to inherit, Clara had been allowed to rebel. She studied art, ran away twice, returned both times with better taste and worse language, and became the only person Amelia trusted without paperwork. "You can still stop," Clara said gently. Amelia smiled without looking at her. "Did he stop?" Clara's expression hardened. "No." "Then neither will I." Outside, somewhere down the hall, Evelyn laughed at something. The sound drifted back faintly, like a coin dropped into a well. Amelia closed her eyes again, not to pretend this time, but to remember. The first warning had come 2 years into the marriage, though she had ignored it because love is often most dangerous when it gives you evidence and asks you to call it fear. Daniel had been promoted at Mercer & Lowe, a finance firm that survived on borrowed prestige and aggressive handshakes. He came home with a bottle of champagne they could not afford and a shine in his eyes. "My boss says I have potential," he told Amelia. "Your boss?" "Cassandra Voss. She's not the CEO, but she might as well be. Everyone listens when she speaks." Amelia had heard of Cassandra. Everyone in certain rooms had. Daughter of a shipping magnate, educated in Switzerland, photographed beside ministers and museum donors, famous for turning struggling companies into glittering machines that looked successful until someone read the debt structure closely. Vale Global had considered acquiring one of Cassandra's logistics firms 3 years earlier. Amelia rejected it after one meeting. "She smiles before she lies," Amelia had told the board. The board laughed, then stopped when they realized she was not joking. That night in their apartment, Daniel talked about Cassandra as if describing weather from a country he hoped to move to. "She said I shouldn't think small," he said. Amelia stirred soup at the stove. "And what do you think that means?" "It means I've wasted too much time acting like being decent is enough." The spoon paused in her hand. Daniel did not notice. Months passed, his suits became sharper, his phone gained a password, he corrected Amelia in public, he stopped kissing her before work. He began to say things like "people in my circle" and "your little job," forgetting that her little job was a mask she wore so well even her husband mistook it for skin. Once at a charity gala hosted by Mercer & Lowe, Amelia attended as Daniel's wife in a navy dress she had bought for $60. Cassandra wore silver silk and diamonds like punctuation marks. Daniel introduced them. "This is Amelia," he said, "not my wife," not with pride, just her name placed gently aside. Cassandra's eyes moved over Amelia's dress, shoes, hands, and stopped at the simple gold band on her finger. "How charming," Cassandra said. "You must be very supportive." Amelia smiled, when support is deserved. For 1 second, Cassandra's smile shifted. There it was, Amelia thought, the crack. Later that evening, Amelia stood near a marble pillar and watched Cassandra touch Daniel's sleeve while laughing. Daniel leaned toward her, not enough to cause scandal, enough to make a wife feel foolish. A waiter offered Amelia champagne. "No, thank you," she said. The waiter lowered his voice. "Miss Vale, Mr. Harrow is waiting in the East Corridor." Amelia took a glass of water instead. "Tell him 5 minutes." The waiter nodded and disappeared. Across the room, Cassandra's eyes followed him. That was the second warning. The third came in the form of a missing bracelet. It was not the most expensive thing Amelia owned, not even close. It was a narrow gold chain with a tiny sparrow charm given to her by her mother the year before she died. "A sparrow survives because it watches everything," her mother had said, fastening it around Amelia's wrist. Tiny thing, clever eyes. Amelia rarely wore it after marriage because Evelyn always made comments about little childish jewelry. But one winter evening, before Daniel's company holiday dinner, Amelia clasped it on for courage. By morning, it was gone. She searched the apartment, the bathroom sink, the coat pockets. Daniel barely looked up from his phone. "It's probably somewhere," he said. "It was on my wrist when we came home." So maybe it fell off. It doesn't fall off. He sighed, Amelia, I'm late. 3 weeks later, Evelyn wore it to lunch. Amelia saw the sparrow charm wink against Evelyn's wrist as she lifted her tea. That's mine, Amelia said. Evelyn blinked, innocent as a painted doll. This, Daniel gave it to me, he said you didn't wear it anymore. Daniel stared at his plate. It was not the theft that broke something in Amelia, it was his silence. That night she stood in the bathroom staring at her own reflection. She looked ordinary, tired, a woman with damp hair and quiet eyes. Nothing about her reflection suggested she could end careers with one call, move markets with one signature, or summon a legal team from 3 continents before breakfast. Why are you still pretending? Clara asked through the phone. Amelia sat on the edge of the tub. Because I need to know who he is when he thinks I have nothing. And Amelia looked toward the bedroom, where Daniel was sleeping peacefully after lying to her face. I'm beginning to know. Clara was silent for a long time. Then she said, when you finally take off the mask, don't do it halfway. Amelia did not. The plan began quietly. Not because revenge needed time, but because truth did. Amelia moved first through documents, Daniel's debts, his secret credit cards, the luxury watch Cassandra had loaned him, the apartment lease in Cassandra's name, Evelyn's pawn receipts, the suspicious transfers from Mercer and Lowe accounts into consulting entities linked to Cassandra's family office. Then came the recordings. Amelia had not married Daniel with suspicion, but she had grown up in a world where people smiled beside microphones hidden in flower arrangements. Her father had made security as natural as breathing. After the bracelet vanished, Amelia installed cameras in her home office, not the bedroom, not private spaces, only where valuables and documents were stored. Evelyn appeared on camera twice. The first time, she took a silk scarf from a drawer. The second, she brought a locksmith. That was when Amelia knew the marriage was no longer wounded. It was a crime scene wearing perfume. Still, she waited. The final piece came from Cassandra. Cassandra requested a private meeting with the anonymous chair of Astor Vale Holdings, the family office controlling much of Amelia's fortune. Astor Vale owned stakes in banks, hospitals, shipping routes, technology firms, and through 3 layers of corporate distance, the debt that kept Mercer and Lowe alive. Cassandra did not know Amelia was Astor Vale. No one outside a brutally small circle did. Her request arrived in a cream envelope through official channels. Proposal, strategic partnership between Voss Meridian and Astor Vale Holdings. Amelia read it in her library at midnight while Daniel slept in the next room, his phone glowing under his pillow with messages from Cassandra. The proposal was desperate. Cassandra's empire was not rich. It was decorated debt. She needed Astor Vale money to survive an audit, cover losses, and acquire a medical technology company whose valuation she had inflated through Mercer and Lowe. The company's name stopped Amelia cold. Hellion Medical Systems. The same company whose experimental diagnostic equipment had flagged a false terminal marker in Amelia's health screening 2 months earlier, causing a brief panic before further tests cleared her. The same company now under review for manipulated reports. The same company Cassandra wanted to control. Foreshadowing rarely arrives with thunder. Sometimes it arrives as a line item in a proposal, a typo in a contract, a name repeated once too often. Amelia looked toward the bedroom door. Daniel had told her Cassandra was powerful. He had not realized Cassandra was drowning. And drowning people grab whatever floats nearest. Even a married man with ambition and no spine. The hospital plan was born from 3 facts. First, Cassandra believed Amelia was seriously ill because Daniel had told her about the initial medical scare, exaggerating it with the carelessness of a man who wanted sympathy from another woman. Second, Evelyn had begun removing Amelia's belongings and discussing what happens after with too much interest. Third, Daniel had asked Amelia to sign a postnuptial agreement, just to simplify things, 1 week after Cassandra's proposal reached Astor Vale. He had sat across from Amelia at their kitchen table, tapping the papers with 2 fingers. "It protects both of us," he said. Amelia turned a page. "It protects you from debt you created and gives you claim to anything I inherit after marriage." Daniel's face tightened. "You don't have anything to inherit." "Then why include it?" "Because Cassandra says standard agreements cover future assets." "There it was again, Cassandra says." Amelia lowered the paper. "Does Cassandra usually advise you on our marriage?" He stood so abruptly the chair scraped back. "Don't make this about her." "You did." He left the apartment that night and did not return until morning. By then, Amelia had called Clara. "I'm ready," she said. The next week, Amelia was admitted to St. Aurelia Medical Center, a private hospital quietly funded by Vale Global for 20 years. Her condition was described vaguely. Daniel heard what he wanted to hear. Evelyn heard inheritance. Cassandra heard opportunity. And Amelia lay still, while they all walked willingly into the room. Now, with the trap complete, Clara handed her a glass of water. "You'll need your voice," Clara said. Amelia sipped, her throat burned. "What time is the meeting?" she asked. "Cassandra's at Mercer at 4. She thinks she's meeting the Astor Vale delegation." "She is." Clara grinned, "Technically." "And Daniel?" "On his way there, probably imagining corner offices and wedding champagne." Amelia swung her legs carefully over the side of the bed. She was not weak, but spending hours still had stiffened her body. Clara helped remove the hospital leads. The tiny hidden camera came away with the heart monitor sticker. For the first time that day, Amelia stood. She looked at the white lilies. "Throw those out," she said. Clara picked up the vase, gladly. At 3:45 that afternoon, Daniel arrived at Mercer and Lowe's top-floor conference suite, wearing his best charcoal suit, and the expression of a man rehearsing humility for future greatness. The receptionist smiled too brightly. "Ms. Voss is waiting," she said. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks. Cassandra had given them to him last month. Silver, tasteful, expensive enough to feel like a promise. He imagined wearing them at their engagement announcement. He imagined cameras. He imagined Evelyn finally walking into a room where everyone envied her son. He did not imagine Amelia at all. That was his mistake. Cassandra stood near the windows when he entered the conference room. The city spread behind her in glass and steel, late sunlight flashing off towers like coins. "You signed?" she asked. Daniel lifted the folder. "Everything." Her smile appeared, quick and hungry. "Good." He stepped closer. "You said after this we could stop hiding." "Soon." "Cassandra." She turned. "Do not be needy today. Astor Vale is sending representatives. This meeting decides everything." "Everything." Daniel liked the word. It sounded like doors opening. He knew Cassandra needed the investment, though she hated admitting need. She had explained it as strategy, expansion, timing, but Daniel had seen the strain around her eyes. He had seen the late-night calls, the legal letters, the way she poured drinks before noon. He told himself that helping her meant helping their future. He told himself many things. Cassandra touched his tie, straightening it. "You may sit beside me, but don't speak unless I invite you to." The instructions strung. "I'm not an intern." "No," she said softly, "you're useful." Before he could answer, the conference room doors opened. 3 people entered. An older attorney named Mr. Harrow came first, carrying a slim briefcase. Beside him walked a woman Daniel did not recognize, severe and elegant, with silver hair and a tablet. Behind them came Clara. Daniel frowned. He had met Clara only twice. Amelia's difficult sister, the one Evelyn said had no manners. Clara wore a black suit and the faint smile of someone enjoying a private joke. "What is she doing here?" Daniel whispered. Cassandra's eyes narrowed. "Do you know her?" "She's Amelia's sister." Cassandra's head turned slowly. Mr. Harrow placed his briefcase on the table. "Good afternoon. We represent Astor Vale Holdings." Cassandra recovered first. "I was expecting the chair." "Yes," Mr. Harrow said. "She will be joining us." Daniel felt irritation rise. Amelia's sister here, today, of all days. Clara sat across from him and folded her hands. "How, Amelia?" Daniel asked, trying to sound wounded and noble. Clara looked at him, awake. The word landed with such quiet force that Daniel forgot how to breathe. Cassandra's gaze snapped toward him. "You said—" "I didn't know," Daniel whispered. Clara tilted her head. "No, you didn't." The doors opened again. Amelia entered. Not in a hospital gown, not pale beneath sheets, not fragile. She wore a cream suit cut with devastating simplicity. Her dark hair pinned low, her face calm. Around her wrist gleamed a narrow gold bracelet with a tiny sparrow charm. Evelyn's stolen bracelet. Daniel stood so fast, his chair rolled back. "Amelia." She looked at him the way one might look at a stranger blocking a doorway. "Daniel." Cassandra stared between them, calculation collapsing into confusion. Amelia walked to the head of the table. Mr. Harrow pulled out her chair. Daniel's mouth opened and closed. Memories crashed through him. Amelia in the rain, Amelia laughing over burned toast, Amelia crying silently after the doctor's appointment, Amelia asking why Cassandra was advising their marriage, Amelia lying in the hospital bed while he signed her away. He reached for anger because fear was too humiliating. "What is this?" he demanded. "A meeting," Amelia said. "With my company," Cassandra added sharply, trying to reclaim the room. Amelia sat, "No, Ms. Voss, with mine." The room became so still that even the city beyond the windows seemed to pause. Cassandra laughed once. "Excuse me." Amelia opened the folder Mr. Harrow placed before her. Astor Vale Holdings owns 37% of the secured debt tied to Voss Meridian, 11% of the preferred instruments backing Mercer and Lowe's expansion, and full controlling interest in the trust, currently reviewing Hellion Medical Systems. Cassandra's face drained by degrees. Daniel whispered, "Astor Vale." Amelia did not look at him. "Yes." "No," he said. "No, that's not possible." Clara leaned back. "It's been possible the whole time. You were just busy stealing scarves." Daniel's face reddened. "I never." Amelia lifted one hand. Mr. Harrow tapped a remote. The conference screen lit up. Evelyn appeared in grainy but clear footage inside Amelia's closet, placing jewelry into her handbag. Then Daniel appeared in another clip, opening Amelia's desk drawer and photographing documents. Then came the hospital room audio, Daniel's voice saying, "She won't be a problem." Cassandra watched, like someone seeing a bridge burn from the middle. Daniel's knees weakened. He lowered himself slowly back into the chair. "Amelia," he said, "listen, this looks bad." "It is bad. You don't understand what was happening." "I understand everything." "No," Cassandra said. Amelia's eyes finally moved to him. "There it is." He swallowed. "What?" "The sentence that ended our marriage long before you signed the papers." Cassandra snapped. "This personal drama is irrelevant to the investment proposal." Amelia turned a page. "I agree, let's discuss business." Mr. Harrow distributed packets. Cassandra hesitated before touching hers. "The proposal is declined," Amelia said. "Astor Vale will not invest in Voss Meridian or any entity controlled by you. In addition, Our risk committee has triggered repayment review on all debt instruments connected to your logistics subsidiaries. Cassandra's jaw tightened. You can't do that without cause. The cause is outlined on page 4. Cassandra flipped pages. Her eyes moved faster, then stopped. Internal audit anomalies, Amelia continued. Misrepresentation of collateral, related party transfers, inflated asset valuations. Mercer and Lowe's involvement is also under review. Daniel looked at Cassandra. What is she talking about? Cassandra did not answer. Amelia's voice remained even. Regulators will receive the supporting documents this evening, so will your board. Cassandra stood. You vindictive little. Careful, Clara said. The word was soft, but something in it made Cassandra stop. Amelia closed the folder. You mistook quiet for weakness. Many people do. I usually let them. It saves time. Daniel leaned forward, desperate now. Amelia, please, we can talk privately. No. I made mistakes. You made choices. I was scared. I thought you were dying. Amelia's expression did not change. So you divorced me beside my hospital bed. His eyes shone, not with love, but with panic. Cassandra pressured me. Cassandra's laugh was sharp, pathetic. Daniel turned on her. You told me she was nothing. You told me once she was gone. Enough, Cassandra hissed. Amelia watched them unravel, without satisfaction. That surprised her. For months she had imagined this moment as a clean strike, a door slamming, a scale balancing. But watching Daniel tremble did not heal the nights she had lain awake beside him, wondering what she lacked. Watching Cassandra's composure fracture did not restore the years Amelia wasted shrinking herself to test a love that had failed. Revenge was not joy. It was surgery. Necessary, precise, painful even when successful. Daniel lowered his voice. I loved you. Amelia looked at the sparrow on her wrist. Maybe you loved who you were when you had less to prove. He flinched. I loved that man too, she said, but he is not here. Mr. Harrow slid another document across the table. The divorce papers you signed, Amelia said, will proceed. Under the terms you agreed to, you waive all claims connected to me, my assets, my trusts, and any future discovery of property held before or during the marriage. You also affirmed in writing that you signed voluntarily. Daniel stared at the page. His own signature sat at the bottom, like a trap he had drawn by hand. But I didn't know, he said. No, Amelia replied, you didn't ask. Cassandra slowly sat down again. Her mind was working. Amelia could see it. People like Cassandra always believed there was a side door, a hidden lever, a person who could be bought. You want money? Cassandra asked. Fine, we can negotiate. Clara actually laughed. Amelia did not. You have nothing I want. Everyone wants something. Yes. And what do you want? Amelia stood. For a heartbeat, the room seemed to tilt around her. She remembered being 12 years old, outside her mother's hospital room, too young to be allowed inside during the serious conversations, old enough to understand the adults were lying when they said everything would be fine. Her father had knelt in front of her, his face older than it had been that morning. Amelia, he said, holding her shoulders, when life takes something from you, do not spend the rest of your life proving you are wounded. Build something so strong that the wound becomes only one room in the house. For years, Amelia had built companies, trusts, shelters, hospitals, funds. She had built so much that people called her fortune a kingdom, though they never saw the girl inside it still listening at doors. Now she looked at Daniel, who had mistaken her hidden rooms for emptiness. I want my name back, she said. Then she left. The headlines began at dawn. Not with Amelia's marriage. She had no interest in feeding gossip first. The opening strike was financial. VOSS, Meridian faces debt crisis after Astor Vale WITHDIWS support. IGULATORS, review Mercer, and low consulting transfers. HELION, medical SYSTMS deal, collapses amid valuation QUSTIONS. By breakfast, Cassandra's board called an emergency session. By lunch, 2 directors resigned. By evening, her father's old friends stopped answering her calls. Daniel spent the morning in Cassandra's office, waiting for reassurance that did not come. She paced behind her desk, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and furious. The office that once seemed like the center of the world now looked staged to him, the art too large, the flowers too fresh, the skyline too indifferent. "No," Cassandra said into the phone, "do not release any statement without my approval." She listened, then swept a crystal paperweight off her desk. It struck the carpet with a dull thud. Daniel stood. "What happens now?" Cassandra turned, as if surprised he still existed. "You should leave." "What? You are a liability." His laugh came out wrong. "Yesterday, you wanted to marry me. Yesterday, you were married to a woman I thought was irrelevant." The sentence hit harder than any insult. Daniel stepped back. "You used me." Cassandra's eyes were cold. "And you enjoyed it until the bill arrived." He wanted to deny it, but denial required a cleaner soul than he had left. His phone rang. Evelyn. He ignored it. It rang again. Cassandra pointed to the door. "Get out." "Cassandra." "Security will escort you, if necessary." Only then did Daniel understand that he had not climbed into Cassandra's world. He had been allowed to stand near the window until the weather changed. Downstairs, photographers waited outside the building, though not for him. They shouted Cassandra's name as Daniel slipped through a side exit. His phone showed 17 missed calls from Evelyn. He called back. "Daniel," she shrieked, "what is happening?" 2 men came to the house. "What men?" "Lawyers or police, I don't know. They had papers. They said I have to return Amelia's belongings. They had pictures, Daniel." "Pictures of me?" Daniel closed his eyes. "Did you take her jewelry?" A pause. "That is not the point." "Mom, she was my daughter-in-law. She is a billionaire." Silence. Then Evelyn laughed. Not with amusement, with disbelief, with fear trying to disguise itself. "That's impossible. I saw it." No, she wore old shoes." Daniel looked down at his own expensive cufflinks. "She wanted us to think that." "No," Evelyn whispered. "No one rich lets people treat them like that." Daniel had no answer. Because that was the question that had begun to gnaw at him too. Why had Amelia allowed it? The answer, when it came, was worse than anything he expected. Because she was waiting to see whether they would stop. Evelyn began to cry. "I sold some things." Daniel gripped the phone. "What things?" "Just small things. Scarves, a handbag, some earrings, that ugly little bracelet, but then I bought it back when you complained." "You sold her mother's bracelet." "I didn't know." Daniel almost said, "You never asked." The words died because they belonged to Amelia now. Across the city, Amelia sat in her father's old study, watching rain gather against the windows. The house had been in the Vale family for 3 generations, though Amelia rarely used it. Too many memories lived in the walls. Her father's books lined one side from floor to ceiling. Her mother's piano stood near the terrace doors, tuned every month, though no one played it often. On the desk lay 3 objects. The signed divorce papers. The sparrow bracelet. A photograph from Amelia and Daniel's first year of marriage. In the photograph, Daniel stood behind her on the bakery apartment fire escape, arms around her waist, both of them laughing because basil leaves had blown into his hair. His face was open, young, unguarded. Clara entered carrying coffee. "You're staring at ghosts." Amelia did not look up. They were alive once. "Some ghosts are just costumes people wore. Amelia touched the edge of the photograph. He wasn't always cruel. No, but he became cruel when kindness stopped benefiting him. That was Clara's gift, slicing straight through fog. Amelia leaned back. Evelyn sold Mother's bracelet. Clara's expression softened. I know. You got it back. Of course. How much did it cost? Less than my anger. Amelia almost smiled. Clara set the coffee down. There's something else. Amelia looked up. Daniel is downstairs. For 1 second, the rain seemed louder. I told security to send him away, Clara said, but he's standing at the gate looking tragic, so I thought you might enjoy the weather. No. Good. Amelia turned back to the window. But memory is a disobedient thing. She saw Daniel at the bus stop, rain dripping from his hair, offering half an umbrella with a crooked smile. She saw him holding her when the doctor said the word unlikely. She saw him asleep in their old apartment, one hand on her side, as if afraid she might vanish. Then she saw him beside her hospital bed, signing. The last image swallowed the rest. Tell security, Amelia said, that Mr. Pierce is not permitted on the property. Clara nodded. At the gate, Daniel stood soaked beneath a black umbrella that was too expensive to look romantic. He had bought it after Cassandra laughed at his old one. Security approached him with professional politeness. Miss Vale will not receive you. Daniel stared up the long drive. Through the rain, the mansion looked unreal, all stone and glass and old trees. He had passed estates like this before and imagined the kind of people who lived in them. He never once imagined Amelia walking those halls barefoot, carrying tea. I'm her husband, he said. The guard's expression did not change, not according to the documents you signed. Daniel flinched. I need to speak to her. No. Please. The guard said nothing. Daniel looked toward the upper windows. For a moment, he thought he saw movement, a pale shape behind glass. Amelia, he shouted. Rain answered. Inside, Amelia heard him. She did not move. The next week stripped Daniel's life down with almost mathematical efficiency. Mercer and Lowe suspended him pending internal review. Cassandra stopped taking his calls. His company email was disabled. The apartment Cassandra had leased was reclaimed by her office. His credit cards, already strained by months of pretending to be richer than he was, began declining. Evelyn's house filled with legal notices. Every item she had taken from Amelia had to be returned or accounted for. The handbags, the scarves, the earrings, the coat, even a set of old recipe cards Evelyn had thrown away because she thought they were just paper. Those recipe cards had been handwritten by Amelia's mother. Evelyn spent 3 days calling thrift stores, pawn shops, online buyers, anyone who might have touched the things she had sold. At first, she was indignant. Then she was frightened. Then she became small. She found the cashmere coat in the closet of a woman who had bought it online. The woman refused to return it until Evelyn paid triple the price. The earrings had already been melted by a jeweler. The recipe cards were gone. When Daniel told Amelia's legal team, the reply came in one sentence. Ms. Vale expected as much. That sentence haunted him. Not because it was cruel. Because it was calm. He would have preferred rage. Rage could be argued with. Rage meant some part of her was still tied to him, but Amelia's calm was a locked door with no keyhole. One evening, Daniel returned to his mother's house and found Evelyn sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by empty jewelry boxes. She tricked us, Evelyn said. Daniel loosened his tie. He had worn it to 3 interviews that went nowhere. Don't. She did. She pretended to be poor. She lived modestly. She lied. He looked at his mother. For the first time in his life, he saw not the woman who had sacrificed for him, but the woman who had taught him hunger and called it ambition. Evelyn had grown up with little. She told that story often, polishing it until poverty became a crown she wore to justify taking whatever she could reach. Daniel's father had died when Daniel was young, leaving debts and a garage full of tools. Evelyn worked hard. That was true. She also made sure Daniel understood that the world owed them for it. "Marry up," she used to say while ironing his school shirts. "Love is nice, but security is better." When he brought home good grades, she said, "This is how you leave ordinary people behind." When he got his first job, she said, "Make sure important people notice you." When he married Amelia, she cried in the bathroom and later denied it. "She has nothing," Evelyn told him the night before the wedding. "You'll carry her forever." "She loves me," Daniel said. Evelyn dabbed her eyes. "Love doesn't pay for private schools. We don't have children. You might with someone else." He had been angry then. He had defended Amelia. He had said his mother was wrong. But seeds do not need permission to grow. They only need soil. Over time, Evelyn's voice had blended with Cassandra, then with his own. "You deserve more. You settled. You are meant for bigger rooms." Now Daniel sat across from his mother and realized bigger rooms echoed when entered alone. "She didn't trick us," he said quietly. Evelyn stared at him. "She tested us." "That's worse." "No," he said, "what we did was worse." Evelyn slapped him. The sound cracked across the kitchen. Daniel did not move. Evelyn's hand trembled. Shock filled her face as if she had struck herself by accident. "I gave you everything," she whispered. Daniel touched his cheek. "No, you gave me wanting everything." He left before she could answer. That night, Amelia attended a charity board dinner at the Vale Foundation, her first public appearance since the scandal began. Cameras gathered outside, hungry for the newly revealed billionaire wife whose husband had betrayed her. Amelia knew the story had already mutated online. People loved hidden heiresses and wicked mothers-in-law. They loved betrayal more when it came with money. She wore black. Not mourning black, decision black. As she stepped from the car, reporters shouted questions. "Ms. Vale, did your husband know about your fortune? Is it true he divorced you in the hospital? Will you sue Cassandra Voss? Do you have a message for Daniel Pierce?" Amelia paused at the entrance. Flashes burst white around her. Her team expected no comment. Mr. Harrow had advised no comment. Clara, standing just inside, mouthed, "Don't feed them." Amelia turned slightly. "My message," she said, "is for anyone who confuses quiet people with powerless people." The reporters went still. She continued, "Be careful what you do when you think no one important is watching. Character is not what you perform for the wealthy. It is what you offer to those you believe cannot repay you." Then she walked inside. By midnight, the clip had been viewed millions of times. Daniel watched it on his phone in a cheap hotel room because he could not bear Evelyn's house and had nowhere else to go. He replayed it until the words stopped sounding public and became personal. Character is not what you perform for the wealthy. He remembered the first time he lied to Amelia about Cassandra. It had been raining then too. Cassandra had invited him to dinner after a late meeting. "Just strategy," she said, though her dress and the private room suggested otherwise. Daniel had texted Amelia, "Stuck at office, don't wait up." Amelia replied, "I made soup. It'll be in the fridge, be safe." At dinner, Cassandra asked about his wife. "She's sweet," Daniel said. Cassandra smiled over her wine. "That sounds like a word people use for someone they've outgrown." "He should have left." Instead, he laughed. That laugh was the first betrayal, not the kiss weeks later, not the hotel room, not the divorce papers, the laugh. He had allowed another woman to make his wife small, and he had enjoyed feeling larger beside her. Daniel turned off the phone. The hotel room went dark. For the first time since the hospital, he cried, not loudly, not dramatically, just silently, with one hand covering his face, ashamed even though no one was there to see. Cassandra did not cry. She fought. For 2 weeks, she attacked Amelia through lawyers, media whispers, private threats, and old favors. She leaked stories suggesting Amelia had manipulated her husband, faked illness, entrapped grieving relatives. Anonymous sources called Amelia cold, unstable, vindictive. Amelia expected all of it. Every lie Cassandra released found a document waiting. Every accusation met a timestamp. Every anonymous source was quietly traced to a public relations firm Cassandra had hired through a shell vendor already under investigation. The heavier Cassandra pushed, the faster her own walls cracked. Her board removed her as CEO of Voss Meridian pending review. Mercer and Low cut ties. Hellion's deal collapsed fully, exposing inflated projections. Investors fled. Former allies began giving interviews using phrases like concerned for some time and deeply troubling governance issues. No one falls alone in high society. They are dropped by people pretending they were never held. Cassandra's final attempt came in person. She arrived at Amelia's foundation office without an appointment, wearing sunglasses and a white coat, her elegance sharpened into desperation. Security called upstairs. Clara wanted to refuse. Amelia said, "Send her in." Cassandra entered like a queen walking through smoke, back straight, chin lifted. "You've made your point," she said. Amelia sat behind a simple oak desk. No throne, no skyline, no performance. "Have I?" Cassandra removed her sunglasses. She looked tired, older than her photographs. "What will it take to end this?" "It will end when the investigations end." "You control the investigations." "No, I submitted evidence. Other people control consequences." Cassandra's laugh was bitter, spoken like someone powerful enough to pretend she isn't powerful. Amelia accepted that. Why Daniel? The question surprised them both. Cassandra looked toward the window. He was easy. Something in Amelia's chest tightened, though not from love. Cassandra continued. He wanted to be chosen. Men like that are starving doors. Open one and they walk through. You knew he was married. Everyone is married to something, a person, a fear, a ladder. And you. Cassandra smiled faintly. Survival. For one brief moment, Amelia saw the girl beneath the silver silk, a child trained in rooms where affection came after achievement, where failure meant exile from the family table, where money was not comfort but oxygen. Cassandra had not been born monstrous, she had been carved. But pain explained her, it did not excuse her. My father used to say survival without honor is just delayed ruin, Amelia said. Your father sounds like a man who could afford principles. My mother died in a public hospital because the private specialist was trapped overseas and no amount of money could move time. Do not speak to me as if wealth prevents loss. Cassandra's eyes shifted. Amelia stood. You built your life on leverage. You used Daniel's vanity, Evelyn's greed, your board's fear, your investors' ignorance. Now the leverage is gone. What do you want from me? The truth. Cassandra frowned. About what? Hellion. Silence. There it was. The name had always been the stone at the center of the lake. Daniel was personal. Evelyn was personal. Cassandra's affair and insults were personal. But Hellion was larger. False diagnostics, inflated data, patients frightened by uncertain results, hospitals misled, investors deceived. Amelia's own false medical scare had been corrected quickly because she had access to the best specialists in the world. Most people did not. Cassandra looked away first. I didn't alter the reports, she said. But you knew. I suspected. And continued the acquisition. My company needed it. People needed accurate tests. Cassandra's mouth tightened. Do you know what it is like to have thousands of employees depending on you? Yes, Amelia said. That is why I don't gamble with strangers' lives. Cassandra's mask cracked then, not fully enough. If I cooperate, she said, will Asta Vale support restructuring? No. Will you protect me? No. Then why would I tell you anything? Amelia walked around the desk and stopped in front of her. Because someday, after all the lawyers and headlines and losses, you will be alone with the person you became. I am offering you one chance to leave that person a door. Cassandra stared at her. For a moment, Amelia thought she would laugh. Instead, Cassandra sat and began to talk. The Hellion testimony changed everything. The scandal widened beyond gossip. It became congressional hearings, regulatory reforms, patient advocacy campaigns, hospital procurement reviews. Amelia used the attention carefully. She funded independent diagnostic safety audits across public hospitals. She established a patient legal defense fund. She testified once, briefly, and refused to make herself the center of the issue. Daniel watched from farther and farther away. His name appeared in articles only as a footnote, estranged husband of Amelia Vale, former Mercer and Lowe associate, subject of internal ethics review. He lost the job formally in March. Evelyn sold her house in June to cover legal settlements and debts. She moved into a small rented apartment near a bus line and complained to anyone who would listen that Amelia had ruined her. But fewer people listened now. Greed is entertaining when it wins. When it loses, it becomes embarrassing. One afternoon in late summer, Evelyn received a package. Inside was a small wooden box. Her hands shook as she opened it. Recipe cards. Not the originals, copies written in Amelia's mother's handwriting, restored from old family scans. There was also a note. The originals are gone because of what you chose. These copies are not forgiveness. They are proof that I know the difference between justice and cruelty. Evelyn sat down slowly. For the first time, she did not cry because she was afraid. She cried because someone she had hated had shown more restraint than she deserved. Daniel received no package. Months passed. He found work eventually, not in finance, not anywhere impressive. A small logistics company hired him for operations after he was honest in the interview about being dismissed. The owner, a blunt woman named Marta, looked at him for a long time and said, I don't need saints. I need people who have learned something and won't make me regret believing them. He worked hard. Not the polished, ambitious performance he had once called hard work. Real work. Inventory issues, driver schedules, warehouse delays, angry clients, early mornings with burnt coffee from a machine no one cleaned properly. No one cared about his cufflinks. He stopped wearing them. One evening, almost a year after the hospital, he saw Amelia again. Not in a mansion, not on television, not through the window of a car. At a community health center opening funded by the Vale Foundation, where his company had delivered equipment at a discounted rate. Daniel had not known she would be there until he turned and saw her speaking to a group of nurses. She wore a pale blue dress and the sparrow bracelet. For a moment, he could not move. She looked different, not more beautiful, though she was, freer, as if some invisible weight he had mistaken for her personality had been removed. Clara saw him first. Her eyes narrowed. Daniel raised both hands slightly, a gesture of peace. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said. Trouble rarely announces itself honestly. I know. That seemed to surprise her. Amelia turned then. Their eyes met. The room around Daniel blurred with memory. He had imagined this moment many times. In some versions, he begged. In others, he explained. In the worst ones, she forgave him and he woke up aching because even his dreams had become dishonest. Now, standing before her, he understood that apology was not a key. It did not open the past. It simply acknowledged the door he had broken. "Amelia," he said. "Daniel." Clara remained close. Daniel swallowed. "I won't take much of your time." Amelia waited. "I'm sorry," he said. The words sounded too small, so he did not stop there. "Not because I lost everything. Not because Cassandra used me. Not because people found out. I'm sorry because you loved me when you believed I was worth loving, and I repaid you by making you feel like you had to disappear to be safe around me." Something moved in Amelia's face, not softness, recognition maybe. "I told myself you were holding me back," he continued, "but you were the only part of my life that wasn't asking me to become worse." Clara looked away. Daniel took a breath. "I don't expect forgiveness." "Good," Amelia said gently. "Expectations have caused you enough trouble." He almost smiled, almost. "I just wanted to say it without asking you for anything." Amelia studied him. Then she nodded once. "I hope you become someone who can live with the truth." It was not forgiveness. It was not punishment. It was a sentence he would spend years understanding. He stepped back. "Thank you." As he turned to leave, Amelia spoke again. "Daniel." He stopped. "The man at the bus stop," she said, "was real." His throat tightened. But so was the man in the hospital. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, she had already turned back to the nurses. That was the last private conversation they ever had. Years later, people would still tell the story wrong. They would call it the tale of the billionaire wife who destroyed her cheating husband. They would mention the hospital bed, the divorce papers, the greedy mother, the rich boss who was not rich enough. They would make Amelia colder than she was because cold women were easier to admire from a distance. They would make Daniel more evil than he was because simple villains were easier to hate. But the truth was sharper and sadder. Amelia had not wanted to destroy anyone. She had wanted to be loved without her fortune entering the room first. She had wanted the promise her mother described, someone who would bring her water if he thought she had nothing. Daniel had brought her water once. He had held an umbrella over her head. He had loved the quiet apartment, the basil on the fire escape, the woman in the cotton dress. Then he had been offered a mirror that made him look larger, and he chose the mirror. Evelyn had not been born greedy. Cassandra had not been born ruthless. Daniel had not been born faithless. That was what made it frightening. People rarely become cruel all at once. They make small bargains. They laugh at one insult. They ignore one theft. They sign one paper. They tell themselves one more lie. Then one day, they stand beside a hospital bed and do not recognize their own hands. Amelia kept the sparrow bracelet. Not because it reminded her of betrayal, but because it reminded her of watching. Years after the scandal, she returned to the old apartment above the bakery. The building had been renovated, the leaky window replaced, the fire escape repainted. The bakery still opened at dawn, filling the street with warm sugar and bread. Clara came with her, complaining about nostalgia, but carrying 2 coffees. "You're not thinking of buying the building, are you?" Clara asked. "I already did." "Of course you did." Amelia smiled. They climbed to the roof, where tenants had placed planters along the edge. Basil grew in one of them, bright green in the sun. Amelia touched a leaf. For a moment she was young again, not innocent. She had never truly been that, but hopeful. She could hear Daniel laughing behind her, feel rain on her face, smell soup burning, because they had been too busy dancing in the kitchen to notice. The memory hurt, but it no longer owned her. Clara leaned beside her. "Do you regret hiding who you were?" Amelia considered. Below them the city moved, buses sighing at stops, people crossing streets, office windows flashing, strangers carrying secret griefs and ambitions, and lunches in paper bags. "No," she said finally, "but I regret believing love should require a test." Clara nodded. "That sounds healthy, suspicious, but healthy." Amelia laughed. The sound surprised her. It was easy. Later, when the sun began to lower, Amelia took one last look at the fire escape and understood something she wished she had known earlier. The fortune had never been the secret that mattered most. The real secret was the part of herself she had hidden even from love. Her power, yes, but also her standards, her anger, her refusal to be diminished. She had thought humility meant making herself smaller. She had thought patience meant enduring what should have ended sooner. Now she knew better. Quiet did not have to mean invisible. Kind did not have to mean available for harm. Love did not have to be proven by suffering. When Amelia left the building, a young woman was standing outside the bakery, struggling with a broken umbrella in a sudden burst of rain. A young man beside her offered his, smiling nervously. Amelia paused. Clara followed her gaze and groaned, "Don't." "I didn't say anything. You looked symbolic." Amelia smiled, opened her own umbrella, and walked on. Behind her, the young woman laughed at something the man said. Maybe he would be kind. Maybe he would not. That was the terrifying beauty of beginnings. They arrived without guarantees, dressed as accidents, carrying both promise and warning. Amelia no longer trusted promises without proof. But she still believed in rain. She still believed in open doors that did not require someone else to kneel. And somewhere in the city, Daniel Pierce lived with the memory of a woman he had underestimated. Evelyn Pierce lived with copies of recipes she could never replace. And Cassandra Voss lived in a quieter country of consequences, far from the silver rooms where she once confused fear with respect. As for Amelia Vale, the world kept calling her mysterious, ruthless, brilliant, untouchable. They were wrong about the last part. She could be touched by music, by memory, by her sister's terrible coffee, by hospital wings filled with patients who would never know her name, by the tiny sparrow charm resting against her pulse. But she would never again be touched by hands that reached only when they thought she was too weak to stop them. That was the revenge no headline could capture. Not the lawyers. Not the locked accounts. Not the collapse of false empires or the regret that followed Daniel like a second shadow. The real revenge was this. Amelia lived. Fully, publicly, unapologetically. And every life she saved with the fortune they had tried to steal became another door, closing forever on the people who once stood beside her hospital bed and mistook her silence for the end.